So, I just built my mom a new desktop computer, and I got her old one kind of as a trade. I'm trying to see the experience index here. It doesn't really show up too well. Well, it says 3.7 is the index rating. And that is an Athlon. Come on here. Athlon II X4 250 processor. It's a dual core, 3 gigahertz. You can see here these system ratings. It's got 7 gigabytes of RAM, but it initially came with 5. I went ahead and installed 2, but I'm gonna upgrade this, turn it into a gaming computer. Can't really see those, can you? Quality's not too good. There you go, it's better. So you got 6.5 on the processor, 7.1 on the RAM, 3.7 on graphics, and then 5.1 on desktop graphics, and a 5.9 on the hard drive. Now I got let's see, what is it? A model, let's see, an HP, that'll clear up here. It's a, doesn't want to cooperate, but it's a P6533W. Oh, there it is. You can see that. And I've got all new parts right here. Let's start with the most important. I've got the processor. It is a, you can't really see that either. It's a Phenom II X4 850. Now last year I did a HP upgrade build or whatever, and I got the 840. And that was because they were much more expensive last year. The 840 was 3.2 gigahertz. This one is 3.3, and it was like $100 for that processor. But now this was only 70. I've got a Rosewill 550 watt, 80 plus bronze power supply. I've already got this here Wi-Fi adapter installed. Now this RAM here, it's 16 gigabytes of DDR3. It's 2x8. This is actually going in my system. My system currently has 4 gigabytes by 4 sticks of RAM. That's 16. But my system supports up to 32 gigabytes, while that one supports up to 16 in a 4x4 configuration. So I figure I'll put my RAM in there, and then I'll have room. If I do this, I have room to get up to 32 if I get another pack of these. I've got a solid state drive, which actually, I don't even have that in my main system. I've only got 2 1 terabyte drives right there, which I have an operating system on each one. I've got Windows 8 on my primary and Windows 10 on the other one. I just haven't felt the need for a solid state drive yet. But the reason why I'm putting it in this system right here, this HP, is because I want to have the newest technologies and just try to make it as fast as it can be. I've also got a mounting bracket for it, and I've got 2 USB 3.0 ports for PCI. Just want to have the newest technologies and get the most amount of years of life out of the system as I can. Now you may have noticed, if I'm trying to make this into a gaming system, I don't have a graphics card here. Why is that? 2 reasons. First of all, I didn't have the money for it just yet. Second of all, last year when I did a build, an upgrade build, I kind of just went on a hunch on what kind of graphics card to get. But this time, I'm going to go at it more scientifically, or at least mathematically, because I've got my 970 here, which is probably going to bottleneck the CPU there. But I figure I can compare the frame rates I get in games with my i5 at 4.5 gigahertz and the GTX 970. Compare that to the quad-core AMD older processor with 3.3 gigahertz. Compare the frame rates and see what the difference is, and get a graphics card according to the difference in frames per second in the games. And I'm thinking I'll probably get a GTX 950 or even a 960 if they're if there's not that big of a bottleneck. I'm not going to show myself putting all the parts in because that'd take quite a while, but that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to compare the before and after and show the frames per second in my system, my current system, and compare that to what's going to be in the upgraded HP system. Now, I want to talk about the limitations of this system. I want to make it a gaming machine, right? But its old Phenom processor, it might not hold up too well with the current games. Fortunately, with DirectX 12 coming out, well, actually it already is out, but once games start supporting DirectX 12, the CPU overhead should be reduced, and it should hold off. It should be good for another few years. Now, the most limiting factor of this computer build or upgrade here is the motherboard, only supporting up to 95 watts, and that limits me to a quad core 3.3 gigahertz, which is the best I could get, or I could get up to a 6 core up to 2.9 gigahertz, the 1065T. Unfortunately, that was a little too expensive. Could have gone with a 1055T, but that was at 2.8 gigahertz, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to sacrifice 500 megahertz to gain 2 extra cores. I wasn't sure how that was going to work out, if it was going to be better or worse, so I went ahead and got with the highest clock speed quad core I could get. And here, got the old system. And I've got a 640 gigabyte hard drive there. I'm going to add a solid state on top of that. And got some older RAM there. Going to put my current RAM in there. Now, if I had a 125 watt TDP motherboard, I would have been able to get like a 6 core at 3.5 gigahertz, and would have probably put another 970 with that, but didn't have that option with this. So I'm just trying to get the best that I can get and squeeze out as many years out of the system as I can. This already is about 6 years old, and just want to see how long I can get it to last. Maybe I can resell it to someone. I've already got someone who's interested, but I also might just keep it just to have an AMD system and an Intel system. But it's gonna be loads of fun here. Okay, so I've got the whole thing set up now. Hasn't posted yet, I just now turned it on. The whole thing is a big old mess of cables. I'm not even gonna bother with any of that right now because I'm just gonna run the benchmarks and download. I'm gonna install the operating system, download the games, run the benchmarks, then take the graphics card back out. I haven't even bothered putting the front panel back on yet. But yeah, I've got it all put together. I'm not sure if it's going to post. I might have to go back and fiddle around with something. But at least it's on and loud. Found out why it wasn't posting, at least for now. I forgot to plug in the power connector to the graphics card, like an idiot. Alright, so I got the system post. I'm at the Windows installation now. Installing Windows 7. I'm going to be upgrading it to 10 while it's still free. It's going to be free till July, I think. Anyways, I figured out why it wasn't posting. It turns out the CPU wasn't seated properly. I found that out at 4 in the morning. It's now 5 in the morning. I thought maybe why didn't I already do this? Compatibility report. Whatever, I can figure this out later. The CPU wasn't seated properly. I figured that out when I came back to try and put the old CPU back in because I thought maybe the new one wasn't supported fully, or it was fried or dead or whatever. And then I pulled the heatsink off, and it ripped the CPU right out. I said, oh, that might have been the issue. So I reseated it, and sure enough, it works. I just gotta figure out why this is saying all that. But, yeah, I'm on my way to making a new gaming computer. Okay, so I've got the system up and running, Windows installed. I gotta do a whole bunch of updates, and right now I'm trying to install the drivers, but the Microsoft Net framework is taking forever. I also have 6 games that I'm gonna be benchmarking. Arkham City, Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight. I wanted to make all 3 of the Batmans that have the built-in benchmarks. Fallout 4, Phantom Pain, and Tomb Raider 2013. I want to get some older and newer games mixed in to see, the variety of games and what kind of frame rate you can get with this kind of system. This is going to be running overnight. Well, it's actually morning now. It's probably going to be downloading for like 24 hours. I don't know. But it's over 100 gigabytes of games and drivers and other updates for Windows and all that. And then I'll be able to get some benchmarks done, determine what kind of graphics card this system will get. Alright, it's either going to be a 950 or 960. I would go AMD, but they're not really doing anything impressive lately. Their graphics cards, it's mainly their drivers. They don't really, their driver support isn't too good. They're like 10 FPS slower in games with graphics cards that have like equivalent hardware. Like if you compare like the 270 to the R7 370 to the GTX 960, the hardware is similar, but the performance is not, and it's mainly just because of the drivers. So they're not really doing anything impressive, so I'm going to be going with an NVIDIA card. It's going to be 950 or 960, unless there happens to be no bottleneck, then I might go with a 970, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a bottleneck. But yeah. Alright, well, that's it. Alright, so now that I've got the graphics card drivers installed, you can see the new index ratings. The CPU down to 7.3. The RAM only went to 7.3 from 7.1 from the 7 gigabytes. So I guess Windows knows that you don't really need more than 8 gigabytes. The graphics for both desktop and gaming graphics are 7.9, and I got a 7.7 on the hard disk, or primary hard disk rating, which for me, I've never had it over 5.9 because I've always used regular hard drives. Now I've got only 2 games downloaded now from when I started this, and that's because my internet is kind of slow. The best I can get is 3.4 megabits per second, apparently. And right now I'm using the Ethernet. I was using the Wi-Fi. I was only doing like 1.8. So yeah, it's gonna take a while. I guess I could do 2 of the benchmarks now, since I've got 2 games downloaded. So I might go ahead and do that. But I've got Arkham City and Arkham Origins installed. And I'm downloading Tomb Raider. All the rest of my games are over 20 gigabytes. Tomb Raider's only 9, so I figured get the short one out of the way. So yeah, I can run a couple benchmarks now while it's downloading. Now, I've already done some of the benchmarks, and of course I'm going to be, including a bar graph, but right now I'm just taking note of the frames per second and the GPU utilization percentages. I'm monitoring CPU and GPU over here. And I've already finished these 3 benchmarks now. I'm just waiting for more games to download. I'm going to be doing Phantom Pain next. And I want to talk about this because it was really surprising. You know, I first started off with Batman Arkham City. And those are kind of the frame rates you'd expect from like an older, lower speed AMD CPU, right? 38 frames per second is all you could squeeze out of that CPU. And I upped it to 1440p, and it still got the same frame rates, but it's used a little more of the CPU, or the GPU rather. I was only using about 50% of the GPU power at 1080p and 70% at 1440p. And then just for kicks and giggles, I went to 4K, and you can see right there, 1080p and 1440p are performing the same. 2160p is still kind of playable, which is pretty cool. But then Arkham Origins, and I was really surprised at this. It is actually really well optimized for the CPU utilization. I was able to get 53 frames at 1080p, and at 1440, 44 frames, and at 4K 25. And that was pretty surprising to me because I thought, it's a newer game. It's probably gonna not be much better than Arkham City, but you can tell it's actually much better optimized, which is really cool. And Tomb Raider is as well. It's got 90 frames per second, 1080p, and 1440p at 58, and still playable at 4K at 29. Just barely playable. So it's really cool to see, what games are bottlenecking and what games are running just fine on this slower, older CPU, which is actually the whole point of me doing this. I want to just see how well an old HP or upgrade, an old pre-built Dell or HP machine can run games just by throwing in some more RAM and a better graphics card. It's really, really, really cool.